We're in Italy. We have some red wine. Not the 98-cent wine that we had earlier.
Which absolutely didn't go down well. But...
No, went down the drain well.
No, we're saving it for some risotto later.
Yeah. This is much better. What's that, about $1.50 for this one, or $3.50?
It works out to be around $10.50 for 5 liters.
Oh, wow.
So it's expensive.
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to miss the food here. And thank you for hosting me here.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of the time that I've been in Italy here in your residence in Calisi, which is just down the hill from San Marco dei Cavoti. It's kind of a family property that you have, and it sounds like you're kind of developing a agriturismo of sorts.
Well, the idea is there, but it doesn't seem very practical. I don't have any farming experience outside of what I did when I was a kid, and I'm not really equipped for it.
It's a walnut farm.
Right.
An olive grove. And what else?
And there's a small vineyard, which I have no idea why, but they decided to plant Barbera grapes, which are not indigenous to this region
What's
at all.
Barbera grapes?
Barbera is from, if I'm not mistaken, so don't quote me, is from Piemonte, which is far north in the Alps. And they planted it here. My grandfather used to make the wine, and it was really good. There was always a little sparkle to it. And I don't know how he achieved that, because it's not supposed to have it. But it was really good.
So Italy, what are you doing here?
Well, there's 2 answers. I could romanticize it and say I wanted to go on an adventure and give my child a wonderful foreign life, something that, you know, as an adult he could look back and impress women and say I lived in Italy for 2 years. But the reality is I couldn't afford to live in Toronto anymore. I wasn't brave enough to venture into any other part of Canada. My mentality was, if I have to move far away from all of my friends and family, why not move to a place where I don't have to pay rent? I know the people. I understand the customs, the culture. So I ended up here because I couldn't afford to live in Toronto anymore.
Yeah, we used to live very close to each other in the Junction. So you're kind of a Junction expat.
I am, and I miss it. I miss it all the time. But when I leave here, I miss it too. Because I left for 2 weeks in April. And I was actually surprised. I was afraid I would go home with Sebastian and we wouldn't want to come back to Italy. But as soon as I got back to Canada, I sort of realized I made the right choice. And I just wanted to come back because this is home now. And while I tell people I have no intention of ever coming back to Canada, I know that eventually I'll go back.
Oh, yeah. So that's...
I always say that Canada... I'm a Canadian. It runs through my veins. I'm Canadian to the core. But there's a part of my soul, I'll always be Italian.
It's pretty cool to be Italian. It's
I don't know. I mean... When I was growing up, I hated being Italian.
Really?
I thought it was embarrassing because everything I knew about being Italian, I knew from television, and Italians aren't necessarily portrayed graciously on TV. It's just a different rendition of fat Italian mafioso.
Oh, that's like the American Italian kind of stereotype you're talking about. Like whenever they show, I think the stereotype of Italy is kind of very romantic and, you know, wonderful food and scenery and, you know, wine. And
I think that's how Italians see it. I think North Americans see it as sort of cheesy romantic. Do you remember that it was a famous photograph by Ruth Orkin? I think it was called An American Girl in Italy, something along those lines.
No,
I don't remember the exact name. And it's a beautiful young woman walking down the street. And there's maybe 5 or 6 Italian men, and you can clearly see that they're catcalling her, and she looks terrified. And I think that image of Italians, men just catcalling young, pretty women.
yeah.
So, and you see it in movies like that.
Well, we saw it today when we were driving. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I hate seeing it because it means the stereotype. It's born out of something very real, but it isn't as prevalent as people think.
No.
They make it seem like if you're a young woman in Italy, you really got to watch yourself because you're going to be accosted at every corner.
No, I haven't seen that to be the case.
No, and the stereotype was really prevalent. So when I was young, I thought, well, no one's catcalling me. I'm like, am I just not worthy of that kind of attention? And I felt it was a double-edged sword. I don't enjoy it because it's happened in Canada on occasion. But when I came here, I'm like, well, what is it? And I'm like, oh, right, because I'm Italian. There's nothing foreign or exotic about me when I'm here.
You know, I was here a long time ago at the University of Siena. I took some classes there, and that time when I was there, I guess I was 19 years old. I thought I was pretty good looking, but none of the girls ever looked at me. And I developed a theory, but I don't know if it's true. Maybe it was kind of like a way to save my own insecurity. But I figured because of that, stereotype of the guys basically being very aggressive, I got the feeling that the girls became very used to not making eye contact, because if they did, you would be welcoming a lot more of that attention that they would maybe be trying to avoid. So, but it doesn't seem to be the same anymore. I mean, it seems to have changed a great deal even since I've been here. Like, for example, when I was here, I guess it was like 30 years ago when I went to school here, hardly anybody really spoke English, but now it's basically everywhere. Everybody speaks English, more or less, a lot more than I expected.
No, I know. Even when you come to town, which with I think San Marco has a population just slightly over 4,000, you will find people who speak English, and if they don't, they at least have some foundation so they can understand you if you're struggling to put together a sentence. But I think back to your point, not only that, I think I shouldn't say European. I think perhaps Mediterranean women have been conditioned to not look people in the eye as an aura of sort of mystique. If you recall that woman we saw in Benevento today with the sunglasses on, just perfectly hiding her face, and it just with the white pants and the perfectly shiny hair, and you know, I think I'm the perfect contrast. I'm just sweating buckets and my hair's all over the place, and my eyes are frantically looking around as though I have some secret I'm carrying with me. I'm nervously looking, am I going to be found out? Whereas she was just calm, cool, and collected.
It's kind of a pace.
Right, and I find that's really common with a lot of European women. They hold their head a little higher, and they never really look at anyone. And it gives them, it makes them more alluring. Yeah. Because they're not looking at any one individual, so you're wondering, what exactly are they looking at? What's got their attention? Whereas,
That's Friday. That's barking. Cute little dog.
And that could go on for a while.
That's okay.
I like it when she does it in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. and you're wondering, is she barking at the cats, or is there some wild boar or rabid fox?
Actually, last night I got up, I admit, and I kind of looked around the property for a while thinking, what is she barking at?
I know her barks. That high-pitched bark is because she wants to play with the cats. When she has a lower bark, I'm afraid to see like what is out there. Because it could be any number of things.
Has strangers, I mean by that, humans ever come by, and like what kind of bark is that? Because I mean usually
she doesn't bark for humans. She just gets excited.
Because I'm more worried about humans than anything else. I mean, who cares if a wild boar comes by? But
I don't know.
I'm more
Have you
scared
ever seen
of
the
people.
movie Hannibal? I'm not a fan of wild boars.
Yeah, I guess, but the scariest animals are people.
Well, for sure.
Let's face it, right? Yeah, I mean. Yeah, sure, we have horror films about animals, but it's the scariest creatures.
To be honest, I'm not worried about people coming down here. I mean, the postman won't even come down here. Right. They literally drop my mail off at my aunt's house, who lives in town, because nobody wants to make the 200-meter descent into Khaleesi.
200-meter, but it's a lot more than that because it's all twisty.
Kilometer-wise, it's 5.
Is it that much? Wow.
It's 5 kilometers from the center of town to here. Wow. And it's a 200-meter descent. So. And
as a result of that, it's a lot warmer down here too.
On average, they say it's around 4 to 5 degrees warmer here than it is in town. And I always thought that, I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. 200 meters, does it really make a difference? Oh, it absolutely does. You feel it in the winter when you go into town, it's cooler.
Oh, well, in the winter, it's an advantage.
Yeah, being here in the winter, it is definitely an advantage. I recall a day in February, I was working outside in a t-shirt, and it was a solid 20 degrees in February. Winter in San Marco it tends to be very dramatic, kind of like the people. You get it all at once, and then it simmers out. Winter is maybe 2 weeks. For me, anyway, it felt like 2 weeks, and then you get an early spring.
So, small town living. What's
Small town living?
You're kind of used to it, though. I mean, because when you're a kid, you're
exactly.
Yeah.
I've written about this actually that San Marco isn't that different from the town Vineland, Ontario, where I grew up, in what it has to offer or population-wise, but the feeling is completely different.
How so?
Well, the people are nicer. That's just
here.
Yes, absolutely. The people are much friendlier. If I sit outside at a bar in town, and just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, a bar is a coffee shop. It's just a catch-all term for where you get an assortment of beverages, including coffee. So you'll sit at a bar, and the cars will go by, and within a 15-minute span, I've got 3 honks, someone waving, "Hey, nice to see you." In Vineland, I didn't know the people who lived 2 doors down, and I wouldn't be able to pick them out of a crowd today.
Yeah.
It sounds, a little corny to say, but there's a real sense of community here. And you don't know if it's because the people are a little bit nosy, because
everyone wants to know what
everyone wants
doing.
to know your business.
Yeah.
But some of it actually feels very genuine. People were really concerned about Sebastian going to school and learning a new language and making friends. And any shop I went into, because for the first few months I homeschooled him, which was an epic disaster. And then I put him in school because I mean, we've got a real Norman Bates thing going on. I'm not suggesting he's going to,
stuff you and
no,
put you upstairs.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah, who knows?
Because I'm all he really has. He was really close to my sister, and of course she's back in Toronto. My parents are both in Canada. All of his friends, my friends. We move here, and it's just the 2 of us. I'm the only person he really communicates with, so he just clings to me like glue. And I recognized by October, a month in, I'm like, I have to prep him. He has to go to school. I have to warn him that we can't continue this way. It's not good for either of us. And everyone in town was really, they showed real concern. They wanted to know how he was doing, how he was enjoying it, how he adapted. And this wasn't a case of wanting to know someone's business because, quite frankly, the business of a 10-year-old child is never particularly fascinating. But
yeah, but Italians, I mean, they are genuinely more interested in children, I think, than it...
they do.
Yeah.
They treat children so well, in fact, that I find Italian children very different than North American children.
Because of that treatment that they're getting.
They treat them like small adults instead of children. They speak to them like adults. There's certain things that they'll never let go of. There's a big emphasis on boys being boys and girls being pretty. But if you just put that aside, they talk to children. What did you do today? They ask how are your grandparents? That's a big thing. They always ask Sebastian, when is your no coming? When is your nonna coming? They speak to him because they want to see what he has to say. They're not just making polite conversation because he's a kid and kids need attention. They care. And it became really obvious that they cared. In fact, when I came back to Canada, I was in the Junction one day and I went into Starbucks, and there was a young girl who had served me coffee, I would say on average, 2 to 3 times a week for 4 years straight.
Wow.
I saw her 2 to 3 times a week. We got to know each other on a first name basis. She would write my name on my cup without asking who I was. So I've been gone for 6 months. I walk into Starbucks and she has no idea who I am.
Wow.
Doesn't recognize me. This is a place that I went to 2, 3, sometimes even 4 times a week. And 6 months, and I've disappeared from her mind.
Erased.
Bar Mazzini, on the other hand, I go away for 2 weeks, and the owner of the coffee shop actually sent me a message via Facebook to wish me a happy Easter and note that, we've noticed you're gone.
Wow. Yeah, that's a different thing altogether. But, in defense of the junction, the turnover is a lot more there, right? I mean, the people here, it's all locals, right? You're not getting I don't see a lot of tourist traffic around here. So everyone that comes in, they're gonna know over time.
No, I understand that the junction, it's a small part of Toronto, but it's still in a metropolitan area. And I certainly don't expect anyone in Toronto to notice I'm gone. But a girl who saw me, who knew me by name, it was like I just decided to stop drinking coffee.
Yeah.
And you realize that that's an important part of life. And while I love big cities, I don't like the in-between. I like big cities like Toronto or the middle of nowhere, a town that doesn't get tourists, because you're not going to come here unless you know someone.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Yeah.
You're not going to just, do a Google search, fun towns in Italy.
Although I kind of did something like that recently when I went to Calitri. I had no idea, and it seemed to be a small town that didn't really have, there's no hotels there or anything like that, but there was kind of an Airbnb thing going on there. And similar experience. When I was walking around there, I didn't see any tourists, except I did see 3 what looked like maybe North American or maybe German backpacker type young people. But that's really the only time I've ever seen anybody that seemed like a foreigner in these small towns that we've been in.
Well, I love San Marco, and I think if more people came here, I think by word of mouth, it would become a popular place because it's idyllic. The food is incredible.
Yeah.
Everything is organic, grain-fed, no pesticides. The wine is inexpensive and often better than anything we can get in the LCBO for a fifth of the price.
Yeah.
The people are warm and friendly. It's always sunny. You've been here for how long?
Well, a couple of weeks and then left, and another week. Yeah.
And what have you seen? Maybe an hour
nothing
and a
but
half
sun.
of rain?
Yeah, actually, I wish there was a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, it is really, I can't say it's underrated because something has to be rated initially for it to even be underrated. It's just off the radar.
It seems like they're catching on, like this, what I mentioned earlier, the agriturismo type movement that seems to be happening. You are seeing it spring up, and even in and around here as well.
Yes and no. Agriturismo, if it's done well, it can be really incredible. I went to an agriturismo in Martina Franca. So Martina Franca is just a small town in Puglia, and you get to stay in a trullo. So those funny little, they look like houses that elves would live in. They're really known in Alberobello. And there was absolutely nothing to do at this place. And we sort of got there and we were like, well, what are we going to do? Once you pet the donkeys and adjust to the constant...
Is that a euphemism? Or?
Oh, no. I wish. But literally...
Pet the donkeys.
Get used to the smell of pig slop and everything. It was a farm. It was a working farm. But the meal we had there, it was worth staying an evening just to dine there.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it was like no meal I've ever had, and it was First of all, it was anything that you ate came directly from that farm, which it can be a little unsettling to know that the pig that you winked at that afternoon, you probably ate his brother that night at dinner.
Ouch.
But, you know...
Well, you want fresh. That's the way it's got to be.
That's the way it's got to be. But even we watched, the day before, apparently they were making mozzarella, and you watched them sort of wrap it. Fresh mozzarella. You ate it a couple days later. Everything was fresh, and that's a really big thing in the South because they're trying to generate more tourists, more business. But I think a lot of it, they're just trying to make ends meet, trying to get a boost from the government to fix up their farms, fix up their homes, and the government helps that way because not enough people come to the South. Once people hit the Amalfi Coast, they go to Positano, they have a romantic dinner, they overpay for it, and then they get the fuck out of Dodge and they go back to Rome or Florence. Yeah. And I certainly don't mean any disrespect to Rome or Florence, but the South.
Oh, it's I prefer it.
And so do I. Yeah, and I mean, I know I'm biased, and you hear enough about, oh, well, no, you haven't seen Italy until you've gone to Tuscany. Well, you know what? Emilia Romagna is right next door, and it's not that different.
It's not as crowded.
You know, Umbria, it's even more similar. So it's not like they reinvented the wheel when the Medicis were making their banks and financing all the Renaissance artists or whatever the Medicis did. Yeah. It's a gorgeous place. I'm not saying otherwise, but I mean, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal about how people don't want to go to Naples because it's terrifying.
Yeah, it has a bad reputation.
It has a horrible reputation.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
great food, beautiful people. It's amazing.
You really... I think to me, Naples is really what, if you go back to Italian stereotypes, like that photograph of an American girl in Italy or whatever it's called, I think that was all born in Naples. It's where you get the most Italian of the Italians.
As the French say, joie de vivre. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, so, Italian. Like, if you listen to the Italian language, what we often hear is from the South. That's what, like, famous actors like Massimo Troisi, who just before his death started to make it over to North America. He was from Naples. He spoke in that dialect. And even pizza, everyone's favorite food, it is from Naples. It was born in Naples after, it was created for the Bourbon Queen. And that's where we get, something like Queen Margarita in
pizza.
Toronto. It's not a hipster name. It was literally named for the queen that the pizzaiolo invented this thing for.
There's even a pizza chain called Pizzaiolo.
Exactly. And I didn't even realize until this is sort of embarrassing. I didn't know pizzaiolo actually meant pizza maker.
Oh, I didn't know that either, yeah.
Until I came here and I was introduced to someone and they said he's, un pizzaiolo. And I'm like, oh shit.
That makes sense.
It's all coming together. So the influence that the South has in culture, even in art, in so many things, it starts in the South, but we always want to think it's all from the North because of the Renaissance. But the South has just as much to offer. Yeah. And sure, I'm a bannerman for the South. I'm from the South. I was born in the South.
South is cool.
The South will rise again.
Yeah.
People are going to it's becoming prohibitively expensive to go to northern Italy. My son and I had a meal in Milan. Sebastian, he's a big city kid. He loves big cities.
About to turn 11.
So he's just all about, he wants to go to London and Shanghai and Beijing. He wants to see the big cities. So, of course, we come to Italy. He had seen Rome. It wasn't big enough for him. He's like, I need to see Milan. So I take him to Milan, and he loved it.
Really?
He loved it. And I don't particularly like Milan. In terms of architecture, it doesn't have anything special. The Duomo is breathtaking. But step away from the Duomo and it's just sort of...
Kind of an industrial town.
And it's an industrial money-making city. We had a mediocre meal. Certainly not the worst meal I've ever had. But it cost twice as much as a meal you would have anywhere else. But because it was in Milan,
right.
I had to pay a premium. But the quality wasn't any better. The wine wasn't any better.
Yeah.
And everything cost twice, even 3 times as much.
There's a bit of a tension between the North and South in Italy, between Italians themselves, isn't there? I mean, it seems like the North seems to be a little snobbish towards the South, if I'm not mistaken.
There is an idea that Southern Italians are lazy. I remember years ago I worked at a sort of a museum gift shop in Jordan, Ontario. Not every time I say Jordan, people assume I mean the country, and I'm like, no, the town. Yeah. And the one woman I worked with, I just adored her. They were all senior citizens. They volunteered there, and her name was Janet Foxcroft, and I'll never forget her because she was lively and entertaining. And I think at the time I was around 20, so she must have been around 75, 76. Wow. And she just seemed so with it for someone significantly older than me. I mean, at 20 years old, you're kind of an idiot. You think 75 is ancient, and it's just, not. It's not very old. And she said when she was a teacher working in Toronto, she felt bad, but she made a disparaging joke that she always knew which children emigrated from northern Italy and which from the south, because the ones from the north were smarter.
What?
And the principal of the school at the time was Southern Italian, and he looked at her and said, well, I'm from the south.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's that idea, because the north is economically, they're the money-making region. It's where all the tourism goes. Everything is from the north. If you look at, the greatest exports Italy has to offer, Parmigiano Reggiano is from Parma, which is in the north. Ferrari, which isn't exactly a hot export, but just as an example, it's from the north. Balsamic vinegar is from Modena in the north. Even the wines that we're accustomed to drinking they're all from Tuscany, the Veneto area, or
well, they're
Piemonte.
Just by virtue of being closer to the rest of Europe, they're going to get their things out there.
Italy's a peninsula. We're surrounded by water on 3 sides. So the further south you get,
more isolated.
We're more isolated. There is no German neighbors, no French neighbors.
Right.
So it had.
And it's a lot hotter in the south, so you're not going to maybe work as fast in the summer. No, you're going to take the month of August off.
No, it's just, how do you work in this kind of heat? So we need to have the shutters on our house restained. And we know right now that no one will come do it at this time of year. How do you work in 48-degree heat? Yeah, no. It is legitimately, well, it's not actually 48, it's 44, but it feels like 48. So you might as well just say it's 50 and call it a day.
That's right. Yeah. I was, I guess in my last monologue, I was talking about some of the ancient historical remnants and ripples of the ancients that were around here. I mean, it's before even the Romans, there was the Etruscans and there were others, and even southern Italy, you've got the Greek culture that was there as well, and it's all kind of a mishmash of amazing relics of culture that have sustained itself, and we are it. I mean, that's us. Right?
Well, we're sort of living proof of years of different people coming together. So Marco, for example, is predominantly a French town, and I think what happened was a man from France, I think from Provence, came down into Italy, and he discovered this little area, and it was severely underpopulated because there was a plague that ran through here, and it pretty much decimated the population. And I suppose he wrote back and convinced all of these Frenchmen to come down to San Marco, which I don't know what it would have been called at that time.
Right.
But he told them, come down to this region. It would have been the Sanio back then, Sanium, the Latin name, because it's very warm. but very fertile ground, rolling hills. I mean, it's ideal for growing. I mean, we grow kiwis, grapes, olives, wine.
All the good stuff.
You can really grow anything here 'cause it's so hot. So he wrote back, I suppose a whole bunch of Frenchmen came down, and I believe their name it was either the Gavot or Gadot or something along those lines. It was French. And through the years, it became Cavoto from the French Gavot. And they came, and there was another plague, and they all died too. But the name stayed on, and that's where the origins of the town is from France.
Life was harsh.
Well, there's a church in town. It's really neat. It's tucked away in a really old part of the town that you don't often come across it because there's not much down there, and they're trying to restore it. And the church is around 500-600 years old, and it's tiny. And there's a plaque on the outside that said during the 1500s, this is where people hid. They came for respite from the plague.
Wow. We got it easy, man.
Yeah, I know. There wasn't, we didn't have to worry about the plague.
Yeah.
But of course, the plague is tied to another characteristic of southern Italy is superstition.
That's true.
People believe
right?
that these things happen because the South they're ostentatious when it comes to Catholicism. Every street corner, there's a picture or a statue of Padre Pio.
Right. The one with the holding the babies. That one? No, that's Saint Anthony. Padre Pio. Oh, no.
No, Padre Pio is the stigmata guy.
Right. It's right. That guy.
No, so everywhere they sell statues, necklaces. We have a keychain for the tractor. Padre Pio's face is on it. You need the guidance of God, of a saint to drive a tractor on these fields.
But the saints, it's kind of interesting, going back to the ancient Rome thing where they had the tradition of various, the pantheistic gods. And it's like the saints are somehow kind of a continuation of that way of seeing, it's like they can't get away from this idea of splitting up the responsibilities of the theological, and that you have a huge pantheon of saints now, whereas you used to have a pantheon of gods. Now we have a pantheon of saints, which always kind of was really confusing to me.
Well, I don't know a lot about religion because I lost interest in it pretty quickly, but I think they just replaced gods with saints because that's all Catholics or Christianity really did. They stole from other religions to make their own.
Well, I guess every religion does that because they're all just trying to answer the same questions. It's like, what the fuck's going on?
What is our purpose? And
I
don't think Padre Pio has the answer.
No.
And the funny thing is that he's venerated here now. But at the time, when he did have the stigmata, or so it's been told that way, he was cast out of Pietrelcina. And I don't know if this is something that they readily tell the tourists who flock to go see the birthplace of this saint. But when he actually had it, they thought it was the mark of the devil.
Well, yeah.
So they cast him aside, and he ended up in San Giovanni Rotondo, which is a little further south, and that's where he died.
So is it after death that this it becomes something as to what we know him now as? It's not,
Yeah, I think it was after death, or even there was something unusual because, and this is what everyone always, the story that they enjoy telling is that when he had the stigmata, an open wound in time will begin to smell rancid.
Yeah.
And of course it was an open wound, and he consistently lightly bled, but he always smelled like roses. So that's why they're like, oh, it must be real, because he doesn't smell like rotting flesh. He smells like roses.
Wonder what his trick was.
Rose water.
Rose water, yeah. Just kept bathing in rose water.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's all it takes.
But Pietrelcina is a really lovely town, but you can't turn a corner without. This is where he was born. This is where his parents lived. This is where he took his first shit. Everything is about this man and this man alone.
Wow. So what is your stance on religion and Well, like, for example, what do you think happens when we die?
Nothing.
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 Yeah.
I think.
Does that bother you?
Of course it bothers me. When you truly embrace the fact that nothing happens after death, it sort of makes you realize that nothing that happens in life is really important.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I wouldn't say it's insignificant, but we're part of a vast mechanism that is almost impossible for, I would say, a layperson to understand. I try never to think about the universe. I go to great lengths not to think about it, because when I think about infinity, I sort of get panic attacks.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I can't comprehend it. And
Yeah.
it goes, I mean, I probably can't comprehend it. It goes back to being a kid. I'm terrible at math.
Well, I don't know if anyone can really comprehend it. Yeah.
Theoretical physicists might have some idea.
Well, yeah.
Better than me, for sure. And I wanted so desperately to believe in God. When I was a kid, I told my parents I wanted to be a nun. To this day, even though I'm a complete atheist, I still believe I met the devil.
Oh, wow.
I saw the devil when I was a kid.
I think you told me the story, yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's because it was a life-defining moment.
How did that go again?
So when we were growing up in Vineland, our house, we weren't on city water, and we had a cistern. And one night I couldn't sleep. So I went down into the basement, and I saw sort of a flicker of light in what would have been sort of a workroom. It's where my dad kept his tools. We kept our winter boots when we weren't using them. It was just sort of a junk room, but it also had the cistern in it. And I walk in there, and there was a man standing by the cistern. And he was sort of an unassuming man, neither attractive nor unattractive. He didn't look friendly. He was very thin, and he looked tired, just disheveled. He was wearing a cheap suit, a London fog trench coat, and he was smoking. And he looked at me, and he took a big, like a long haul off of his cigarette, and exhaled and said, "Go back to bed, child.
Whoa.
Go back to sleep.
Go back to sleep.
Go back to sleep, child."
Right.
And it creeped me out.
Well, there's much to be mined there.
Right. Go back to sleep.
Psychoanalytically, and yeah.
And to this day, it sounds ridiculous. How can I on the one hand claim that I don't believe in God when I truly believe that evening in my basement I saw the devil?
I think they could be squared in the sense that, I don't believe in God in the way that, a lot of people believe in God or the devil, but I can think of them as terms of forces of nature that we choose to describe in the ways that we do. So what you could be like, I could see what you're saying in that dream or experience or whatever you want to call it, is that some force is being expressed through that communication, and that what was being expressed to you, within you, through you, as an avatar of you was, don't question so much, go back to sleep.
Go back to sleep. Just let it all wash over you. Go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And what I think at the time, I would have been around 7 or 8. I was young. And several years later, at about 11, I was in some sort of convenience store in Fruitland, Ontario. I remember my mom stopped. It was in the summer. It was very hot. We were on our way home from my grandmother's, so she stopped to buy us popsicles, banana popsicles. And we went in with her. She's paying for the popsicles. And there was a magazine, the National Enquirer, because if you need your facts, you go to the National Enquirer.
Well, Bat Boy's up to.
There was a picture, sort of an artist, like, a sketch artist depiction of what a woman, I believe in Georgia, of course, southern U.S. She said she had met the devil. And they did a sketch of him, and it was the exact man that I saw standing in my basement.
What?
Down to the suit, every wrinkle on his face. Like, I was a kid. I was convinced I'd seen the devil. So that's not a face I was going to forget. So when I saw it again on the cover, I was terrified. And that image has never left me. And in true moments of fear, I see his face.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, see, that is the devil in a sense. I mean, it's the personification that comes up and characterizes itself in your imagination. So
as I got older, I started to think about it more and more. And I especially started to question it when I realized that I didn't believe in God. The Bible to me is nothing but a metaphor between good and evil. And, Jesus, I believe Jesus was real. Some great Jewish kid and
had some good ideas.
Just a nice kid, wanted everyone to be happy.
Hey man, love each other.
The Romans didn't like that.
No, fucking him.
Let's put this guy on a cross
that
and
peacenik.
teach these people a lesson.
Yeah. That seems like an old story that continues, right?
Right. They really, he was a scapegoat, and essentially they made a martyr out of him. And I believe all of that to be somewhat true.
Yeah, sure.
There's, it's a game of telephone. You've been telling the same story for 3,000 years. The people who have been telling it can't read, they can't write, they all spoke different languages. By the time it gets down to us.
Yeah. But even before him, there were, the story of Jesus is very similar to the story of various other gods that were 1,000, 2,000 years before him, or prophet
the Christians
types
just
and
got
Horus,
smart.
the Egyptian gods. And I mean, it's just, this is what we do in culture, right? We take stories from before, we kind of mishmash them together, we have a collage of it, and then we repurpose them in a new narrative, and then a different culture will take it up. But really, we're all just trying to figure the same shit out. Right. So it's no surprise that there's going to be a lot of similarities between them. Like there's going to be good and evil. There's going to be triads. There's going to be, the beyond. There's going to be heavens and earth. And it doesn't seem to matter where you go. The same kind of stories and narratives are just kind of repackaged. And we're doing it again now with the technological repackaging of, like the singularity and talking about super intelligence and all that, creating a God in that form. It's, it just keeps coming back to it.
We just find different ways to make it more relatable. The Christians knew we can't call this guy a God. We have to make him human with godlike powers.
Right.
And people bought into it. And that, as I got older, I realized that what I saw in the basement, I even started to question whether I had actually gotten out of bed. I probably just dreamed the whole thing. And it was...
And what's the difference either way, really?
Right. It was real to me. And it is real to me, even still to this day. Even though I can acknowledge it was a figment of my imagination, but it was something telling me that there is a real evil out there, just as there's a real good.
So you do think that the universe splits into that good and evil?
No, I don't think the dichotomy is so black and white. There's a gray area. Good people do bad things. Bad people do good things. It doesn't make them any less bad.
But is it something, like if I do something evil, is it a force of evil that's expressing itself through me? Is it something in the universe that is evil?
I keep shaking my head. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't... That's a really good question. I don't think...
Like, what are we giving agency to? Like, to you? Like, if I do something evil, is it me that's doing it, or is it like? Because it's the evil acting through me.
No,
right?
It is you that is doing it.
Yeah, I think that's more reasonable.
I think people want to say that it's someone acting through them because nobody wants to be accountable anymore.
Right.
And when you do something good, it's because you felt it in your heart. When you do something bad, someone else told me to do it. Well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, good try.
We have to. And that's another thing. Psychopaths can be really charming. Does that mean they're wholly evil? Well, no, I don't think anything is wholly evil.
Right.
And I think that's what makes the devil so compelling. He was presented as to be wholly evil. Years after my encounter in the basement, my very vivid dream, I read, I'm talking decades later, I read Not Wanted on the Voyage. And it remains to this day one of my favorite books. And the idea of the devil in this book was that he was just a regular guy who was tired of living in paradise, and he wanted to see what else there was.
Yeah.
Not that he was some force of evil. He just got tired of living with all these saints and angels. He's like, well, what else is there?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that unreasonable. Like the story of is it Satan? I don't know, or the devil. I mean, they're not the same. Are they the same?
Who?
Devil and Satan. Like the story of the archangels.
It was. His name was Lucifer. It was
Lucifer,
the
right.
Archangel Michael's brother,
Right.
I think.
So he basically got very curious and wanted to see what else was going on.
So really, he was just smarter
shunned.
than everyone else.
It's like we can relate to that in some sense, right?
I mean, is curiosity not a hallmark of intelligence? He wanted more.
Yeah, but you got to go think back to the Garden of Eden, though. The whole thing is about like squashing that curiosity, right?
Well, to me, the Garden of Eden was always just a giant euphemism for premarital sex.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The snake.
The tree of knowledge, though? Is it about the knowledge of like erotic pleasures then?
Yeah, sort of. No, to me, the forbidden fruit.
Yeah, sure.
Don't eat the fruit.
Yeah.
That they suddenly became aware of their nakedness. Like children.
Right.
Children don't understand
you could run
nakedness.
around naked, you don't notice it.
You don't really understand nakedness until you've had someone truly look at you naked.
Or you start to notice another nakedness.
Right, until you... Yeah, so to me, the story of Adam and Eve was nothing more than good old premarital sex.
Well, I think it could fit that too, but I could fit a lot of things in terms of the things that they don't want you to do.
I think the entire Bible is, it doesn't mean any one thing. It's how you read it, how you see it. Mm-hmm. Some people think it's the letter of the law. Yeah, to me, it's just an amazing story that's endured thousands of years. Mm-hmm. All of it nonsense. Except
if taken literally.
If taken literally, except the tenets. Just be good to people.
Yeah.
Do unto others. It's a great rule to live by. You don't want people to treat you like shit? Don't treat them that way.
Good advice, right?
Yeah, and I mean, some people don't adhere to it, but as a general rule of thumb, it works quite well. Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it's turned into a giant business rather than just what it was meant to be.
Well, isn't social media and even all of the things we were taught as children, we're slowly taking them all apart. Stranger danger. Don't reveal too much of yourself. Everything has to be private. Be aware of everyone around you. We literally expose ourselves on every platform available. We're doing things that we were told we shouldn't when we were kids. Don't get into a car with a stranger. Now you literally summon strangers with a phone to come get you. You get in and...
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
Social media, what is it but just revealing what you want everyone... I mean, it's certainly...
How do you feel? What's your position on that sort of thing, privacy? Because I have kind of taken the approach of revealing, where when in doubt, reveal myself is kind of the approach I've been taking, and it's been working for me. It's like I have very few secrets to the world. I can't really think of any dark, deep secrets that I haven't really blurted out loud, or maybe even on this podcast I've already said some of the things that I can't think of much that I keep secret.
I don't think anyone has any deep secrets.
Yeah.
Barring maybe someone who's, a homicidal maniac and they haven't gotten caught yet. The sad reality is no one is as interesting as they think they are. And with social media, especially now with geotagging, people know where you are all the time.
Yeah.
But you can also sort of fake that. I recently took a picture and I put my location in and I just typed in Santa Barbara because the hill in the distance, that's its name.
Right.
Santa Barbara. It's the town the earthquake swallowed up.
Right.
But it automatically went to Santa Barbara, California. So it gave the
illusion... So it tagged it as California.
...that I was just in Santa Barbara, California. But I wasn't. I was here in Khaleesi.
But that's on the surface. But the metadata knows where you are exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I'm not worried about metadata.
Well...
Because what I've been conditioned to believe is that you don't want people to know where you are because they might stalk and follow you.
Oh, I see. Like in real time, yeah, they're not going to have that advantage of tracking you. But
No.
post hoc, I mean, like when someone wants to go and check exactly where you are at every moment, they can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I guess, more dangerous when you have like a nefarious government in place or something like that. But Google records apparently all of our conversations all the time. Your phone and even Facebook. I don't think they hide this fact that they,
No.
if your microphone settings are set on, they're listening to you. It's not like there's a person listening to you, but there's some machine, algorithm software that's listening and listening for keywords. Yeah, and if you say, I don't know, if you say Santa Barbara, maybe you'll get an ad that's something to do with Santa Barbara comes up, or
You
you're
absolutely
there.
do. You look up something once, and I wanted to know how much laser hair surgery was, and now I'm inundated with ads for laser hair surgery, and
but you typed it in.
Right.
But you, even if you're just having a conversation, you and I driving in the car today, we're having a conversation. It's quite conceivable that those keywords that we were talking were being picked up. And then those can be used to market to you, but also to know about you and what you're thinking and feeling and your attitudes are, maybe your political dispositions, and that can even be used to sway you in certain ways. And that's being done. And it's getting, in quotation marks, they are getting better at it, whoever wants to manipulate. And
I haven't noticed that as much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just not paying attention to it.
Well, I guess if it's done well, we wouldn't notice it either. But
I think that's the
it's
point.
kind of hard. Yeah.
But I always think of it more on surface level because that's more real to me.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
it's more relevant to your everyday experience.
I don't have any deep, dark secrets. I don't have any private government files. So even if someone were to listen to my conversation, if I'm talking to my sister or my friend Roseanne, it's not going to be, that interesting outside of anyone who knows us. So I don't have anything to hide. I think what bothers me with social media is people, they get upset with, why would you post pictures of your children?
Oh, yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting, case study there. But
I especially now, it's a great way for even, my sister, my uncle, anyone who I've come in close contact with, they can see how he's growing and enjoying a completely different world.
Yeah.
I can't call everyone and tell them moment by moment. And sure, I'm not presenting an accurate picture. I don't post the pictures of me freaking out on him because there's Lego everywhere or he won't do his math homework. I'm not going to do that. I want to give the illusion that I'm Mary Poppins.
Everyone has an idealized image of themselves that they're presenting. Yeah.
But the truth is if someone, wanted to follow us, it's going to happen anyway. The minute you sign up for social media, you've sort of let go of a little bit of privacy. And if you think that putting your security settings are really high, you're just fooling yourself. If you want anonymity, do not use social media. Do not work in media. Just sort of slip back, because like you said, even on the meta level, someone's always listening.
At least some,
even when you think they're not.
Software is listening. Some algorithms are listening. Yeah. It's getting hot in here, and you're on a cigarette, so we should probably wind down a little bit. Yeah. Thank you, Daniela.
You're welcome.
And thanks for everything. Great summer. And we'll see you in Toronto in December, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Take it easy. And, high five.
Oh, we can hear that, right? Maybe not.
Let's do it again.
There we go. Thank you very much.